Assalamu alaikum dear students. In the previous lecture we have discussed the two types of reading skills that are skimming and scanning, and in today's lecture we are going to discuss the other two types of reading skills that are intensive reading and extensive reading. So let's start. Firstly we discuss what is meant by extensive and intensive. Extensive and intensive reading refers to the approaches to language learning and teaching. From their names, we can probably deduce that they both celebrate reading as an integral part of language learning. And how these are approaches, it is the point to discuss. These are approaches because language learning based on four skills that are reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And reading is one of these skills, so we cannot learn any language without these skills. And intensive and extensive include in the category of reading skills, and how it is central because the language learning is based on four skills and reading is the central skill. So from this perspective, language is central skill and it is considered as integral part of language learning. Extensive reading, which involves learners reading text for enjoyment and to develop general reading skills. It prefers the reading for joy, and this approach supports reading as much material in your target language as humanly possible. This way, its supporters claim you will be exposed to the widest range of vocabulary and grammatical structures. All of this is supposed to make you a better language learner and help you on the way to smoothness. The question arises how it is supposed to better grammatical structure and vocabulary. Extensive related to the larger area rather than it is exposed to widest range of vocabulary. How it is helpful to learn grammatical structures because it is not concerned with the word-to-word reading. In this, we are concerned with word dictionary. It is not related to word dictionary, but it is related to smooth reading. In this, full sentence provides us a background knowledge. From this way, it is not related to word reading. What is intensive reading? Intensive reading involves learners reading in detail with specific learning aims and tasks. It prefers reading carefully for an exact understanding of the text necessary for contracts, legal documentations, and application forms. Whenever we read any legal documentation, we highlight each and every aspects that are discussed in detail, and in this way we utilize this technique of intensive reading in order to clarify our concepts. This approach helps language learners really understand the language grammar and syntax. The proponents of these methods use a wide range of exercises to complement the reading itself. Syntax is important because we study in detail, and from this we have a chance to better our syntax structure, and we know how sentences are constructed and what are the structures that formulate the different sentences. Extensive reading is meant to be a fun and playable experience requiring a low expenditure of mental effort. The more extensive reading you do, the more language you are exposed to, allowing you to increase your passive knowledge of vocabulary and quite quickly. Specifically, if you wish to read text extensively, you must read texts that are interesting, level appropriate, or moderate length. To read when you can dedicate longer blocks of time and to do so when you are relaxed. Extensive reading is quite different from the intensive reading. In intensive reading, we study for specific purpose. We probe into the origin and use of different ideas. Extensive reading means to study a theme from the point of view of player seeking. The reader studies the text for enjoyment. He studies a larger amount of novel, fictions, and other things, and to add his comfort and pleasure, he has no specific aim before him. Here we discuss the important aspects of extensive reading. The first is text must be interesting, because if your interest is there, then you will provide your time for reading, and if there is no interest, then you will avoid it. Since extensive reading is done for longer periods of time, you must take care to select text for hold your attention and keep you coming back for more. Or after all, text must be level appropriate, because you must be able to understand a high percentage of a text before you even begin. The goal is to absorb the unknown words through context. Therefore, if you don't understand the bulk of the context, the text is not yet appropriate for you to read extensively. In extensive reading, it makes our reading capacity better, and we begin to read fast. It helps to enrich our vocabulary. We read a large number of books on one topic. In this way, we gain more information than that of the intensive reading. So, the level appropriate is basic requirement when you are selecting the text. The next point is the text must be of moderate length. Specifically, a text should be on average at least 15 to 30 pages. Texts of this length are long enough to fully develop an idea or narrative, and require you to keep mental track of ideas, concepts, or characters as they develop over time. We can finish book in a reasonable amount of time if the length of text is moderate, and it saves our time and it provides us pleasure and amusement, and from this we can read fast. The next point is the ideal learning materials for extensive reading. In this category includes graded readers, bilingual books, and comic books. Graded readers are easy to read and it develops a taste for reading. Bilingual books includes the books that are written in two languages, and it is easy for a reader to read and interpret them. Comic books is very famous category of the extensive reading, and it is also a source of pleasure and fun for the readers. Intensive reading is defined as to read intensively is to completely reconstruct a text with a goal of absorbing as much meaning from it as possible. This is done by taking a text and thoroughly looking up every word, phrase, or collocations that you don't understand. We do intensive reading when we have our aims and goals before. We must know why we are going to make an intensive reading. We should identify if we are going to write a research or a research book, or are we going to do a thesis for a higher degree. This method of reading is often used by students who are fond of learning new words from the dictionary. They take back words, find its origin and its various grammatical uses. In this way, they enrich their languages. This activity requires a great mental effort and focus. Because of this, the learner who engages in intensive reading must be careful to follow specific guidelines or else risk the dullness and stress. If you wish to read a text intensively, you must take care to read texts that are interesting and short, to read only for a brief period of time, and to do so when you have the most mental energy. In this process of intensive reading, the most important thing is the focus of the reader. If reader focus on the text, then it is easy to perceive or grasp the meaning from the text, and in this great mental effort is required as compared to the extensive reading. In extensive reading, less mental effort is required, while on the other hand, in intensive reading, mental effort is required at much higher level as compared to the extensive reading. So this help us to enhance our knowledge about different things, and with the help of intensive reading we get knowledge in detail as compared to extensive reading. Here we discuss the important aspects of intensive reading. Text must be interesting because if you don't enjoy what you read, you will quickly forget the content and have many mental resistance to the intensive reading process because it is a painstaking activity. It is not for career. So it is necessary to develop interest in the process of reading so that you grasp the idea what the writer wants to say. Otherwise it might be a useless activity if there is lack of interest during the process of reading. The other important aspect is that the text must be short because end goal is to understand the text. The longer a text is, the more laborious is to complete such deep analysis. So it is better to stick a shorter text in order to avoid mental torture. If the text is short, the more chances are there that the student grasps the meaning of the writer, and if the text is too much extensive, there might be probability that the students may skip the most important or significant points from the text, and in this way they are unable to grasp the meaning what the writer wants to comprehend. And the intensive reading provides us a chance to enhance our vocabulary, and it provides us way to students to study each word used in the text with concentration. So shorter the text, the more chances are there to comprehend and interpret the idea that the writer wants to give the reader. So it is necessary that the text must be of appropriate length. Ideal learning material for intensive reading includes news articles, Wikipedia articles, short stories, blog posts, and these all are discussed in detail while reading. So these are included in the category of intensive reading. Differences between intensive and extensive reading. The first difference is that extensive reading covers large area while intensive reading covers narrow area. According to Graham Stanley, extensive reading involves students reading long text or large quantities for general understanding with the intention of enjoyment the text. It means that the students are given freedom to choose their own topic which they are interested to be discussed. While in intensive reading, it is not like so. And there are certain methods for extensive reading. In order to read a passage or some article extensively, we must use the following methods. Try to read books which are a little below our intellectual level. It will help us to study them without consulting a dictionary. We can read as many books as possible. Our aim is to enjoy them. We can read without knowing the meaning of each and every word. We don't go deep into probing the origin and use of the word and phrases. While in intensive reading, the focus is on the origin of the word and how the words and phrases are used in the text. In the case of extensive reading, the students also have to find supported articles related to the topic in order to give them background knowledge so that they know more about the topic they have chosen. It is different from the intensive reading that does not allow the students to find any topic they like. The topic is given by the teacher. The student also don't necessarily to look the supported articles because the topic which is chosen by the teacher is usually short and easy to understand. So in extensive reading, we see greater knowledge in shorter time, and extensive reading provides us pleasure and amusement. It makes our reading capacity better. We begin to read fast. It has to enrich our vocabulary. We read a large number of books on one topic. In this way, we gain more knowledge than that of expensive reading. So, in this case, extensive reading is more effective as compared to the intensive reading because more knowledge is conveyed to us from the extensive reading. Extensive reading will discourage the overuse of dictionary. On the contrary, dictionaries must in intensive reading. It is true that dictionaries have an important place in reading activity, but as stated by the bill, that the students will focus only on the language if they always consult the dictionary. Every time they find an unfamiliar word, they will not pay attention to the message conveyed. So, in short, extensive reading provides us a chance to know what the writer actually wants to say. In intensive reading, when we focus on words, word to word dictation, there might be a chance that we skip what the writer wants to say. In intensive reading, we more focus on words, but in extensive reading, we focus on the context that the writer wants to convey, and that is the most important in many cases. So, extensive reading is beneficial for us in many ways. Bell also said that this habit will cause inefficient reading and destroy the pleasure that reading is intended to provide. Graham Stanley from British Council said that by avoiding dictionary, the students are expected to be encouraged to jot down the words as they come across in vocabulary notebook. They can look them up after they have finished reading. From the process of extensive reading, we can finish books in a reasonable amount of time. And if we focus on dictionary, there is less chances to pay attention on the context of the text. So if we avoid dictionary during reading process, it might enhance our capabilities to grasp the meaning that is conveyed by the writer. It will make the student guess the meaning based on the context. By doing this, the students are able to always remember the meaning of a word because they find it by themselves. Meanwhile, in intensive reading, the students have to find difficult words while they are reading. The frequency of using dictionary is often because in intensive reading, a text will be used to answer some questions, so the students have to know the meaning of all words in a text in order to make them easy to answer the question. These are certain differences which are present between intensive and extensive reading. And next, we have moved towards the conclusion. In conclusion, during doing complex activities, extensive reading can broaden the student's knowledge more than intensive reading. In extensive reading, students write summary and do presentations which lead them to minimize the use of dictionary. In opposition, the students' activities in intensive reading are more limited. The activities depends on the teacher's guidance only. This kind of activities will not encourage students to explore their abilities. They can't broaden the knowledge by themselves as well as in extensive reading. So, from all that conclusion, intensive reading is not much effective as compared to extensive reading. Extensive reading is much appropriate and effective. So, students must adopt the or reader must adopt the technique of extensive reading if he or she wants to enhance their knowledge. So, thanks. That's all from the types of reading. Hope you all will clarify your concepts regarding the types of reading.